We are Heberts disciples. This is episode 2, Oedipus Rex. Casey, in what ways do crossroads symbolize fate and choice in the play?
I interpreted I kind of interpreted the crossroads as like an illusion of like choice, because everyone thinks like, oh, I can just choose my direction, you know. But during the play Oedipus is always trying to run away from the prophecies he's been told. Like, he leaves his family in Corinth to get away from them to avoid the prophecy of killing his dad and marrying his mother. But all that does is make him end up in Thebes, and that itself just fulfills the prophecy.
Yeah, and I think that's a metaphor for how fate and free will collide. Because on one side, you can argue that he doesn't have free will. Like, this was his prophecy. He was going to kill his mom and dad. But at the same time, he didn't have to go back. He could have stayed in Corinth. He didn't have to do that.
Okay, I think your guys' views are interesting. I think the crossroads are a symbol for him having the choice, because this play is really centered about like fate versus free will, and I think the crossroads stands there to represent the fact that he does have free will and he can make the choice of what to do, how to go on with his life. And I feel like the crossroads kind of represents the decisions he has to make, that he had to make, eventually getting him to the position that he's at. So yeah, I think the crossroads are basically just there for like symbolizing decisions in life. Like, am I going to do this or am I going to do this? Like, what option am I going to go with?
So you think all of everything that unfolded it was more just like he did it to himself, kind of like he made the wrong decisions,
Yeah.
and not like fate was forcing him along the way.
Yeah, I do think that. I think that's why the crossroads are there, to show the choices he could have made, the other steps he could have done that would have maybe led him down a different path of life, wouldn't have led him down the path of life that he went, eventually leading to his demise.
Yeah, he was destined to end up there. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I get what you're saying, Yusuf, but the crossroads, in my opinion, really seem like illusions and almost like they're not real. Like, he was supposed to go on the path, which he did.
Yeah, but how he acted at that crossroad sealed his fate.
Yeah, the way he
For sure.
acted, the decision he made is what decided his fate.
I can agree with Yusuf a bit, because like I think it's very much like, is our fates predetermined or do we have these choices? Because like, I mean, yeah, he's told all these prophecies, which, you know, gives the idea that he was always going to end up there. That's fate guiding him along his path. But I mean, he just makes like every single wrong decision. There's some so obvious that he just completely blunders, and I think the crossroads are representative of both. The fact that maybe he was never going to escape, or maybe he just made the wrong call.
I think his fear of the future, his fear of trying to control his fate, made him lose his ability to control his fate and future.
Yeah.
And that was the result, again, of his actions, of the decisions he took, being so fearful of doing this thing instead of doing the other thing. He kind of goes against his conscience and does something else, which then eventually led to his demise, like leaving his parents, his parents, not his real ones. Obviously, we know they're his adoptive parents, and then eventually marrying his mom and fulfilling the prophecy that was told.
So you're saying that the fear of the fate pushes him down like the road of what?
Yes, fear of fate and trying to control his life, I think, is what led him down that.
Interesting.
Okay, just a follow-up question on that one. How does the play explore fate through Oedipus's journey?
I mean, I feel like we kind of discussed this a little bit, but it's like, it's very much, it's meant to symbolize the question that a lot of people ask themselves, like, do we have control of our life, or is everything predetermined from the moment we're born? Is our future weaved in a thread, or is every decision we make our own? So I feel like the story doesn't create a clear idea. It doesn't have a clear message, and I think that's meant to reflect on us, on our questions with that, and the fact that we have to come to our own terms and make our own decision.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
How does the play explore fate through Oedipus's journey?
Okay, I think yeah, like Casey said, we kind of already a bit went over this in the last question, but I think it's commenting on fate so that, like, in a way that it says you shouldn't be so fearful of your fate. I feel like being so afraid of the outcomes of your choices and constantly trying to know what will come and what's going to happen is what kind of led Oedipus to his demise. It's his fear of fate and just living in a life of fear, fearing what's to come, what will happen, led him down that path. And I think this play is kind of saying that, like, you shouldn't be fearful of the future. You should maybe try to live in the moment and try to make the right decisions that make sense to you. Because, I mean, we see how Oedipus, he didn't have any intention of marrying his mother, but he feared in the future that this is what his mind will change, and saying, oh, I will marry my mom now, which eventually led him to actually, this fear eventually led him to actually marrying his real mom, who he wasn't aware that she was his real mom, but it's what led him, his fear of fate is what led him into that outcome.
Interesting.
I think that's what the play
Yeah,
is
he
about.
tries so hard to avoid the fate, but every move he makes just brings him closer to fulfilling that prophecy.
Yeah.
He's just cooked at that point.
So it's like a direct correlation. I guess it would be a theme that like fear of the future is only going to drive you down a negative road.
Yeah, I could see that, saying that there's a correlation there for that fear of future and what's to come, and then trying to control it, trying to change it, eventually sometimes leads you to that fate because you're so scared of it. You're looking for it really everywhere in your life. That kind of leads to you to that becoming your life when you look for it everywhere.
Yeah, the more he tries to fight it, the more trapped he becomes, and it really raises the question, like, can you really control your destiny? Can you control your fate?
Or is it even like, I feel like it also raises the question, like, is it even right to try and control? Like, should you just trust life and go through the hard spots instead of running away from everything?
Yeah, that could be it. I don't think it's saying to live like a fatalistic life. I think you just shouldn't try to control. I think it's saying to try to live your best, try to stick to good morals and fulfilling your life's goals, but don't be so afraid of the future that it eats away at your current life now and leads to your demise.
Live life to the fullest. Just
Don't be. It's kind of just like it's a general theme, really. The fear of fate. I get what you guys are saying. All right, next question. So, what is the deeper meaning behind Oedipus blinding himself at the end of the play, guys?
I think him blinding himself is kind of ironic in a way. He's been so blind to what Tiresias has said, to what Creon has said. Really, he's been blind to almost every piece of news he's been given in his life. And I feel like him blinding himself at the end, I think shows the realization that he realizes that he was blind to everything. Everything that the people told him was indeed true. And they weren't trying to steal the throne from him. Like, Creon wasn't trying to steal the throne from him. Neither was Tiresias trying to hurt him. He was simply telling him the truth. But he was so blinded by his fear that it led him down that path.
I agree. I think it's also like definitely like a symbol for his blindness. But I think it's also like his inability to cope with the trauma. He's in that moment, he realizes, like you said, blind to everything. All the news, everything, he just shuts it out and he gets angry and he yells at them and calls them stupid. So then he realizes that he's made every single wrong decision and he just can't bear the sight as he watches his wife/mom hanging over her bed and he just can't take it anymore and he just has to remove something from himself. He can't bear to look at it.
Yeah, I think emotionally, like speaking, he's very stressed. He's been stressed most of his life because of the prophecy. But now it's like so psychologically overwhelming for him that he can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's the greatest symbol of the play. He's so blind to the truth, everyone else sees it besides him. And because of that, he sees it as like a punishment, but at the same time, it's also a statement. It's like, I didn't see this, so I deserve to be punished. I have to take my own eyes out to, justify what has happened.
So it's like you view it as like him giving himself like this ironic punishment.
Exactly.
Alright. And then one last question. Why is Tiresias' line, "You yourself are the pollution of this country," so powerful?
I think it's because it's so powerful because it's meant to show that like sometimes we just have this like Oedipus at this point has become a king. He's this hailed hero, or was, until this plague has swept through the city. So as everybody's dying, pestilence is everywhere, and all he does is blame everyone else, but yet he's in charge. And so I feel like it's meant to show that like people can get so full of themselves they can lose sight of what's actually important. So as he spends the entire play pointing the finger, Tiresias is the only one who has, I guess, the guts to be like, no, stop blaming everyone else. This is your fault. Take accountability. Because Oedipus throws the problems on everybody else. He never takes the accountability. He's blind. He pushes all his problems away. He runs away instead of just accepting that it is what it is and I have to do what it takes to solve my problems.
Yeah, it completely flips the image of Oedipus. He's supposed to be the hero. He's supposed to be the problem solver, which he was at one point. But then he got cocky and he just started avoiding all his problems. Tiresias is like, nah, you're the reason, and it's just total reversal of his image, and which it makes it even more dramatic when he realizes that Tiresias was right.
So it's just like the accumulation of all of what Oedipus has done, and Tiresias is just saying all at once, like it's all your fault.
Basically.
I think I don't know if I completely agree with it being like all your fault. Well, it is his fault. But I think what Casey and Daniel were saying about how he's so full of himself. I mean, he started off as, he left his parents. He's kind of wandering, and then people viewed him as this hero after he killed the Sphinx and he got out of Thebes. But I feel like after that and like him being the king and all that, he felt so elevated. I think he felt so much in control of his life. I think he felt maybe to a degree like a god. He felt so prideful, and to hear someone saying, "You yourself are the pollution," he obviously reacted very negatively to that. He hasn't heard someone speak to him like that in a long time, and in addition to that, I think, like I said, how he kind of sees himself at this like God status. I mean, people usually would think that God can't do wrong, and if he views himself in that sense, he would think he's perfect. He's trying, in his defense, he's trying to help the people, but he doesn't realize that his arrogance leads him to be blind to the truth.
Yeah, it's a little too little too late. I mean, he comes out of his castle and says what's wrong is people are writhing on the ground.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's kind of ironic too that he's like in his head he's portrayed as this god, but fate is still controlling him and all this like other stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think he's displayed as an evil character. Like when you're saying how he saw people raving outside and in pain, clearly, I think he's trying to help them. He wants what's better for his people and for his nation, but I think just him being too prideful and arrogant, and again, fearing the future, it just led to him not seeing what actually happened and what's the actual problem.
Yeah, I don't believe he's downright evil. Sorry,
and that blinds him, basically.
Yeah. I don't think he's downright evil either. I think it's a culmination of his ignorance and his arrogance that leads to all these problems. He doesn't think, I can very much get on with what you were saying, where he views himself as a god, or at least this very elevated figure. I can't make mistakes. What could possibly be wrong? How is there a plague in the city?
Exactly.
All right, cool. And then one final question, guys. What universal theme or motif do you get from the story?
I would say the most common theme I would see would be the problems with paranoia and not being able to, I guess, I don't know how to say it, not being able to just trust your life and trust your decisions. Because, I mean, he makes so many decisions, like I've said, of running away or pushing his problems away. He leaves Corinth, and all that does is take him back to his real parents and fulfill the prophecy even more. He, goes down all these crossroads and he makes the wrong decision by running. He doesn't address his problems until the very, very end of the play, which culminates in himself blinding himself.
Yeah, I can agree. I think that the overall theme and I guess universality to our society would be that don't be so afraid of what's going to happen that you can't see what's going on around you. I think Oedipus being so afraid of marrying his mother, and doing all the things, and him worrying that he actually is the plague, led to him denying it. He's trying to push it out, but by doing that, he becomes that thing. And I think we can apply that to our life as well, is when we're fearful of something that could happen, not necessarily is forced to happen, we maybe try to avoid it, but by trying to avoid it, we only get closer to it. But instead, maybe if we live in the moment and we pay attention to what's happening around us and what's going on around us, and actually try our best, not necessarily to avoid it, but to to face it, to understand what could happen and how to deal with that if that did happen. And I think Oedipus is too blinded by his fear to see what's going to happen. I think that says to us that we should be aware of what's to come and try to counter it, but understand how and like why it could happen.
Yeah, going along with that, it's like staying humble. You gotta think of yourself like being in control, but not thinking you're all knowing. And going along with that, like taking responsibility of what you've done. Even when you mess up, you just have to think, oh, how can I fix this, and not be too arrogant about it.
Yeah. So like Oedipus's lack of accountability only ever makes things worse.
For sure.
I didn't really think of it like that, like what Daniel just said with the responsibility and what you said about accountability. I actually completely agree with that. I mean, he's so arrogant that he can't see that he's actually the problem. He's, I guess, so full of himself, not necessarily evil, but he's just full of himself and arrogant, that it makes him ignorant to what's going on around him. And I think that speaks to us, and that we should try to be humble. We should take responsibility for the things in our lives and understand why some people critique us. Maybe it's not always, they're not trying to hurt us, but they're actually looking at what's best for us and for our society.
Yeah, and at the end, I think he takes responsibility of his actions in a unique way by blinding himself. He doesn't run away from the truth anymore.
Yeah.
All right. That was awesome, guys. Good conversation. That was episode 2 of Heberts Disciples.